other industries actually do join game jams. So it's like not only game developers but other people as well, just out of the pure interest of doing it. Have you had like studios like spawning from game jams or games that kind of like yeah yeah, because I think like that's like one of the really cool things, and I think there should be more of this like big game jams where different kind of people and like from all over different kind of industries meet and start developing games. Is because it's actually beneficial for everyone, like more game studios doing their own things and this international cooperation. It's very cool.
Yeah, and for example, thinking about the effect of the game jams in our industry here in Mexico, I'm thinking, for example, a lot of the Mexican studios that you could find in the world, they begin with game jam projects. They meet in game jam. In fact, I could say that 90% of the people I know about the game industry here in Mexico, I knew them in the game jams. And also, a lot of the games that are having success, most of those games, mobile games, begin with ideas in the game jams, and they begin to work on it. The only thing is that this good part of of the game jam community also bring us here in Mexico another bit of a bitter part. Let's not say it because it's not something bad, but it gives us the idea that we have to make the games in 48 hours. So a lot of times we overwork on our prototypes, on our games, and we lose the focus of getting fun in the jams, socialize with other partners, and also make us lost the idea of how much time do you need to create a professional video game, because we end with great ideas but it's not a full game. And looking for that, when the Global Game Jam let us give this 1 week format, it was awesome for us because it led us to bring like a schedule for the jammers with a methodologic handbook that gives them an idea of take it easy, go slow, take just 1 day to think about the topic, research, take 1 day to make the document design, take 1 day to make the first prototypes, make the prototypes first in paper. Don't go with Unity. We are not rushing, and it works very well. Our jammers are making more complex games. They are taking more slowly the developments, and also other thing that I have listened on this year and the last year that I haven't listened on other jams. I'm thinking 8 years ago. That was, well, we didn't end the game, but our project is so good that we are going to work 1 month more to bring it to the Play Store. And I was like, nice. Yeah, that's awesome because that's the way. It's not that you have to have this competitive process. Other thing that is interesting is that I don't know if it works for every part of the world. It happens in the US a lot. That they make the game jams like very competitive because they give prizes, and well, we work more with the community focus of the game jams, not the competitive part. We give some giveaways, some nice giveaways. I want to be a jammer, not the organizer, but they are not based on a competitive part. We just give them for whoever wants and whoever has the luck of being part. But we try to make that way of come participate here, teach from other jammers, teach to other jammers. If you are in your first year of college, don't worry, game, you will find some partners from the second or third year of college that will help you, and it's a very nice community in that way. They work together, they teach each other. For example, one of our jammers that is a Colombian girl, I forget her name right now, sorry, we have a lot of jammers. She has been with us jamming like the last 3 years, and she has been participating in every jam that we organize, because we organize some other jams a part of the global. So right now she's working with guys from college. She's teaching them how to make animations, for example. And I remember the first jam I give them, and she was part of the guys who were on a workshop about how to make animations that I give. So it was awesome to now look how we are progressing, and what we do 3 years ago is now replicating with the jammers, and they are making it in their own way. We are not forcing, or we are not inviting them directly. They are just making their own community, and that's awesome for us.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, that's actually very interesting. You said that you're working the whole week. Like you get the topic and then you work on the whole week. Here in Turku, I think this is like something to do with tradition, but we actually, like, we get the theme, like, as organizers, we have the access to the theme, and everyone has the access to the theme, but they actually, all the jammers want that the theme is revealed on Friday, and they actually just have that less than 2 days to work on it. Well, it's like, I completely agree that there shouldn't be, and this also for us wasn't a competition, it was just, everyone doing their thing. We did have food, a lot of it, and
Yeah.
people were staying through the night, working and eating and having energy drinks and everything. We even had a pizza raffle that Natasha actually organized. My Tail sponsored it, so there's like this kind of thing. But I think I agree. I have seen also that people who have participated in game jams like years back, how they are evolving. Like they're actually like, they make nicer and nicer and cooler things. And it's like, this time we saw a few like very complicated games already, and they were done like in such a short time. I was like, wow, that is like so cool how these people are coming together. And it is a community of their like own as well. They're not invited, they just always appear. It's like,
Yeah, well, not just the jammers, us as the organizers, we have an evolution, because, for example, something that happened here in Mexico is that we knew that we couldn't make the game jams as they are presenting in other parts of the world. For example, it was like, yeah, this year it was 11 years ago, when there was a political year, something like the friendship of Mexico and Finland year, and we worked with they came from Mexico, but they were not Finnish people. They were Mexican people who works in Finnish. I remember it was the doctor Carolina Islas, and she came to Mexico and teach us how to make games, because she was doing games there. Yeah, it was nice because, for example, one of the problems here in Mexico is that some of us knew English, but some, because it's a very, very big country and not everybody has the necessity of talking English. Speaking English is something very weird in a lot of parts of Mexico. If you live, well, in the north, close to the border with USA, or if you live here in Mexico City, because we have the main airport, so we have a lot of tourists, well, you learn how to speak English. If not, it's almost like, yeah, I don't want to learn English, and it doesn't happen in Europe, for example, because Europe has a lot of languages in a very small space. we want to look at it. But when she came, she told us how was that part of the process of teaching game design in Finland. And it was like, yeah, we're not gonna do that because we don't have those resources. Here in Mexico, we have another mechanisms to get the promotion of the culture and digital abilities. So we begin to make the global game jam first, following the steps as any other part of the world, and then we began to make modifications because we needed to make that. I don't like the word, but we make to make the localization of the experience to the Mexican folklore, to the Mexican culture. So, for example, we don't care so much of bringing the food inside the sites because here in Mexico the food is something very popular, so you could find it everywhere. So it was more interesting to find places where you could get access to the food, and also because we have jammers from all the country. I remember that I'm going to go to Mexico City to the Global Game Jam, and I want to eat that kind of food. So it was not like bringing the food inside a good idea. It was like better to find some place near or close to some food site. Other thing that we changed was that at first we didn't have enough mentors. Nowadays we have, but in the first cases we didn't have. So we bring the solution of make at the handbook. That is something very, very important to us, because in the handbook we have a brief explanation of how you make a game. So we have these tools to help our jammers, and we focus these handbooks depending on the jam. For the global game jam, it's a very generic because we don't know the topic. We need something, they can do a lot of things. But for example, we make also a social game jam that is focused on some social issue in the world. Anything. So we bring those handbooks with some research about the problematic we are talking about, and we make this handbook thinking about a serious games has another way of thinking and another way of designing when you are making that game. So it works very well for us because it's something that led our jammers to go to the sites and have all the time this mentor and just go with specific dabs to the mentors of every site. And also it helps to bring some terms that are new for them, because we are working every year with new college students. So they came and they are like, oh, but what is a mechanic and what is the difference with a dynamic? Don't worry, we have a handbook. Go for the handbook. We can also explain it, and we can work with your project. And also, it helps us to bring a closer mentorship with our jammers. So we have much more times and more quality time to bring with them. And I think it works very well, and it has helped us to bring these communities, not just the community of our jam sites, but these ideas well sprouting around our other sites in Mexico. So right now, a lot of our sites have, for example, the streamings with specialized people. The handbook, I think it's something that they share more our handbook that make their own, but it's a handbook that doesn't have any new idea on how to make a game in general. So we have a very nice community, and we have make it the Mexican way, and that's something interesting, because a lot of times when we talk about the cultural industries, we see that the predominant industries bring their own methodology, bring their own idea of how it works, and then it is the only way. We are open, we are every time learning from Japanese developers, from American developers, from European developers, but also we are trying to make it in a way that it makes sense for us, because we don't have the same way of understanding the, the game developing, and also of understanding the same problematics. I think it's very interesting. For example, for you in your side, what do you see about this year's theme of roots?
I think it was like one of like one of the more interesting topics for me, at least, like considering all the previous topics, because it's like the word itself has so many different kind of meanings. You can like approach it from so many different angles, and at least for myself, I was like you can literally go very deep with this. You can like dive into like cultural like understandings, and it's like you can like expand something from it, from the word itself. I interpret it myself as like the origin story of something, like the origin of like a person, or like how to describe it. It's like so wide, and at least like in actually here in Turku, the games that we had, there were like there was a few games that really like went all the way to Big Bang, like the roots and origin of everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then there was like picking beets from the ground, like potatoes versus carrots. So like people interpreted in so many different ways. I think that it was one of the best themes I have seen in game jams so far, because you had like, there was so much juice in it. You could see it in so many ways, and I think people really liked it. It was like immediate, like when the theme was revealed, there was this immediate enthusiasm, like, oh my god, yes, the things we can do with this topic, and like I would really want to see also in the future. We also have like several kind of game jams here in Turku as well, from retro game jam to quantum game jam to book jam to whatever. It's like so many different varieties. But I think like global game jam is one of the most active ones, because there is like the topic is always something that everybody are like waiting for the whole year, that what do we get to do this time. Yeah, I really, how was the thing for you there? How did you like,
well,
what happened?
here happens something very weird, because they thought about multiple ways of combine those meanings. They just didn't take one road. They took like multiple roads. So, for example, a lot of topics were like, well, our ancient roots, our cultural roots, but let's talk about carrots, and it was like, okay, that's weird, but it works. And it was very interesting because, okay, when we talk about game jam sites, we used to imagine that sites that we had like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But for example, on our side, as I told you, we have some people from Uruguay, Argentina, and Colombia. But also, the people in Mexico, we have from different cities. I know that when I refer to the cities, probably it's hard to understand the distance, you know. But well, you could Google it on maps, and it will be very fun. For example, it's like we have jammers from Monterrey, from Oaxaca, Puebla, Jalisco, and Mexico City, obviously. So it is like telling you that it is a site when we have people from Berlin, Madrid, Praga, it's like the distance in Mexico are very big. So when they begin to talk about roots, and they want to talk about cultural roots, I believe that's why they begin to make this mix, this weird mix, because the cultural roots for one people is not the same for the others. Although they are in the same jam, and for example, with my students, we are from every part of the country. If you ask them where are you from, well, I have from all the country. So what happens is that they begin to talk, and it's a very interesting topic here in Mexico, because Mexico is a very plural country, and we have a lot of roots. We have it is very different. For example, being from Oaxaca, some Japanese tourists thought that the Oaxacan people are in fact Japanese, because the native language have some very words in common, a lot of words in common. And the Oaxacan people have their eyes very similar to those of the Asian people. But if you go to Puebla, we have a lot of Spanish population. Well, they came from Spanish, they are now Mexican. But that's very, and they are close, they are neighbor cities. So we have a lot of understanding about the roots, about the food, about how it means, and it's a topic that here in Mexico is very interesting. Well, we are Mexicans, but we don't share anything in common in our cultural references. So how do we solve this thing, this problem? And I think that's another thing, theme that is very common to the whole Latam region, because if you look at Latam, well, we have a migration from Africa, we have migration from Asia, and from Asia we have migration from different parts of Asia. Some migration from Japan, as well as some migration from Syria, for example. And it's like, well, we have people from all over the world here in our region, and that's our part of being from Latam, that's our part of Mexico. So it was very interesting for our jammers to talk and solve this identity problem, these identity issues about the jamming, about this team, and it was awesome. It's very interesting how you could look at a lot of games based on pre-Hispanic tales, pre-Hispanic cultural roots, and they are very different. They solve it in a different way, different aesthetics, in different understanding of the mechanics. That's also very interesting here, because a lot of times we talk about the aesthetics as the main way of the cultural heritage on the video games, but also the mechanics. And for example, the mechanics here in our sites were a lot based on walking, not literally exploring or shooter. No, it was walking. The problem of walking, and it's interesting because that's part of the root theme, how we are moving and how it is growing those cultural roots. So it was a very interesting exercise for our jammers to understand that, to understand how they are talking about the roots, about their experiences, and also I never knew that they were so fan of the carrots. Almost every game has carrots, and I was like, well, that's weird. I could talk about potatoes, the potatoes are from Peru, so. Well, no, they talk about carrots much more.
Yeah, we had a lot of carrots too. I'm not sure. I mean, I really don't know why.
Well,
The carrots were obviously a thing.
yeah, well, we have one project that it was interesting because here in Mexico, one of the tales of origin of the Mexican city, of the Mexican culture, is that there were two sons, and to make like well, the gods said we cannot have two sons. It is very hot, so we have to call down one of the sons. So they throw a rabbit. That's why the moon is it's white. And here in Mexico, we thought that in the moon we have the shape of a rabbit. No, so they say, well, it's a rabbit. It eats carrots, and it was like, well, works fine. It's very weird. Because also here in Mexico, when we talk about rabbit, we don't talk about carrots. We talk about some other plants that they eat here. But well, that's an interesting focus. But yeah, I think it was very weird. It was pretty weird, you know, to have carrots here.
You said that like so okay. How did kind of like this mix of different kind of cultures and the distances and the different people gathering in the game jam? You said that there were like interesting findings in the mechanics, but also how did this affect the aesthetics? Because I think we had a lot of like very there were like few very like personal style kind of games, but there were also a few very generic type of games. But how did this like kind of affect the aesthetics of the games that were made?
Hey, calmados. Well, that's a good question because, well, the first thing that affects aesthetics is the technical ability of the jammers. When they do 3D, they say, no, it's very hard to make it another look. Let's go with the basic, you know, with the low poly aesthetic, and they get out. But if we take out the 3D games and we look for the 2D games, that also here in Mexico we have a lot of graphic artists. I don't know why, but we have a lot. So yeah, usually it's cheaper here in Mexico to make a 2D game because we have a lot of visual artists than to make a 3D game. But in the 2D games we had like this very pre-Hispanic aesthetic that is like some kind of an abstract naturalism, you know, because they are like, yeah, we could look at the rabbit in the moon because we have this circle and that's the eye, and it's very closer to the zodiac understanding of how they make the figures. In one hand, and in the other hand, another very important influence here in Mexico is the Japanese anime, because something weird, we share a lot of ideas, of cultural ideas and visuality in common. I was talking with a Swedish animator a couple of years ago. He was talking me about his project that was a tale about a fox and the dead in a forest. And I told, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for us here in Mexico because that's a tale for kids. Because here, when you are raising a kid, you tell the kids horror story for kids, and the folklore is very similar to the Japanese. And I was thinking about that. The Nordic countries, the Japanese countries, and the Latin countries share that horror in the. We believe the horror and the death is something that we have to know since kids. So we share a lot of common parts in the visuality with the Japanese. Because then the Japanese anime has a lot of influence here in the modern Mexico. And a lot of games goes that. a very pre-Hispanic images as well, and a very Japanese aesthetic, and they make a very weird mix. It works, but it's pretty cool, and it's pretty weird to explain it because those big eyes, those stylish forms, works with the brutalism of the architecture of the big teeth serpents, or the dogs with skulls, very aggressive skulls with the fangs very long, and that, and it's like, well, but that's weird, but it works, and that's another part that's another part that is very rich here in Mexico, because some countries are like very closet cultures, and they don't want to change a lot. But the Mexican culture is a culture that, since I have notion, and if you read about the history of Mexico, of the pre-Hispanic countries, they were ever very open. They were like, sure. A lot of time, the population of Mexico is like, yeah, let's bring the new ones, and let's check it how it works. And you will find that a very rich culture. I believe it's something very similar to one of the Greek culture that was very potent. So in the same time, they were very open because they were sure that their culture will not have any change, deep change, and that makes like the Greeks like have a lot of syncretism in their culture. Also here in Mexico, we have a lot of syncretism in our way of understand. We have, for example, nowadays we have well, not in this game jam, and that's something very weird because usually somebody brings the Katrina and does a flower at schools here, but this game jam didn't. They work more with some other parts of the Mexican culture that were not so common, like the rabbits, like the snakes, like the Mexican dogs that have a very weird name, Xoloscuincles. They brought those parts, and they brought this new aesthetic, and they are making something very interesting. And I think in the future, like in 10 years ago, we could make something very interesting, and I'm pretty sure we will see something interesting like the Pinocho of Guillermo del Toro that brings aesthetic that is very weird, very own.
That's so cool, because I think like, well, first of all, I really didn't know that you have like so much in common like in aesthetics with the Japanese culture. That is like completely new information for me, which is very interesting, and I need to dig deeper into this. I need to find out more.
Yeah, I can send you information here.
Yeah, please do. I mean, I'm like this. I kind of like. I'm like, this is like so interesting because I think like here in Finland. Well, first of all, I feel like we do have a lot of artists, but we have so many coders. It's insane. Everybody is a programmer. There's like this. We even have this concept of a coder art. It's coder graphics, and there is a lot of like they're very very good games, but they have the so-called coder graphics, which is like this blocks and gray and it's like non-pretty kind of stuff, but they're also very good games. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of like, it would be so cool to see kind of like if like there would be a possibility someday to do a jam like between the Finnish and the Mexican people, and this kind of like, because I think there would be some like really diamonds to be found, I think, in this kind of cooperation, because this is like, because I think here we have I think Finland is we are very international in the game industry in general. There is like so many different kind of nationalities like in the same kind of mesh community that we have, and there is like there is this kind of sort of generic I think there is like the American media has affected a lot on how the games are developed here. Like we do have them, and you can see it actually in game jams that there are these very Finnish things happening in the games. The forest is very often present in the games because we are forest dwellers.
Yeah.
We live in the woods. Yeah, but I think that would be like you kind of like. You mentioned that you have like this different kind of international like this is like so interesting because we have like few nationalities in our game jam, but it's like all European, and I think like Europeans in general, even though we have very different cultures, very different kind of ways, still we understand each other. We're kind of like in this, so it's really interesting to hear that you have like this, like even though you live in the same country, it's completely different kind of roots, it's different kind of points of view and different kind of things, how people like are, and also like how people are developing games. What about the process itself when you have this kind of different roots meeting in the same kind of room or like online doing the same kind of project? Did the process, was the process affected by it? Like how was it different with the different kind of teams, how they work together and how they did the games? How did that work?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because, okay, it could sound like something that it's like upside to what I was saying, but although if you look at Mexico, like the whole country, like a very open country, when you look at Mexico, like in the local or regional identities, that's another thing. We are like very open in the worldwide, but our regions are very zealous of their own identities and of their own process. So what happened? For example, the people in Mexico City is much more open. They are like a modern. It is a modern city. And I was thinking, as you say about the Europeans, that they have like a very similar values, ways of understand the world. Yeah, that happens because you share the same root, the same cultural root. Here in Mexico, well, the only ones who have like those plural cultural roots are the people of Mexico City. What happens, what used to happen, is that they work with people from other parts and other regions. And the people of other regions are the ones who take the leadership of how to make the things, or what is the way to make the game. For example, I was thinking about the Colombian girl. She always is the leader. She always works with Mexican guys, but she always is the leader. The people from Yucatan, they believe their own way of understanding because their cultural roots are the Mayan culture, and the Mayan culture has their own language, and they use that language in the common day, and they speak Spanish, but they speak Mayan Spanish, and the same goes with every part of the Mexican country. In Oaxaca, we have two big cultural roots. One is the roots of the south of Oaxaca. The other is the central part of Oaxaca, and they have their own language, they speak their own language, and they have their own way of doing things. And you can go with every major city or region here in Mexico. So the secret is that we have the people from the big cities works for the people on the regional cities. That's another thing that is very weird in Mexico. Mexico City, you could believe in Mexico of two things. Mexico City, that is a monster city that has the double of population of the whole Finland in just one city. Or you could believe on the countryside of Mexico, that is like very small cities, and you will believe, oh, they are very isolated. And the people from the big cities in Mexico, they are very open, they can work, they don't have to. And other people, the way to work with them is to give them the tools. because that's another cultural question about that's another cultural theme to talk about. For example, because of the process of population here in Mexico, those countryside cultures were like very limited by the central Mexico. That's why we have a very big capital city. So, for example, thinking about give them the chance of make video games, of thinking the chance of participating in the cinematography industry or the music industry, they have their own industries, they have their own languages, and they usually don't have this kind of events for them with the possibility to share with the world. Part of the way that we that our mechanism here in Mexico, our governments, our institutions believe the culture is that hey, they are from the countryside, they have their own culture, they don't need internet, for example, or access to technology because that will pervert their culture. And in a way, it has some logic because look at, for example, American movies, or obviously alter the way, the sensibility of the way you understand your own culture. But in other way, they also make them like very. I don't know what's the correct word, neither in Spanish. They participate in Mexico, but they don't feel like they have the same rights, for example. So when you give them the tools, they make very interesting things. They work very well, but you have to shut up and just give them the tools. You don't have to be, like participating much more than that. And it's very difficult for the people from the big cities in Mexico. Another thing that is interesting from our sites, it's that our sites have this plurality and works with those countryside cities, because we came from those countryside cities. We are not from Mexico City. That's why we understand that part. For example, I think I don't know if I show Natasha the town where I'm from, but well, it's a town like in the middle of the rainforest, and you will say like, well, hell, there's no a road to that town, and that's true. But it doesn't mean that I didn't have access to the technology, to the education, or the access to work in a big city. It just means that not everybody there works in that. And I'm like, well, you are a weirdo because we are all here countryside men, and you want to work in technology. But we have a lot of example of that. So what happens? We have at sites, our sites have this kind of vision because, as I told you, we came from the countryside. But we also have some other visions, and that's the thing that I think is the rich things in Mexico. We have other visions that came from a much modern places like Mexico City, and they believe in the game dev in another way. Because, for example, some sites like the company sites or some colleges, they believe the game jams as a way to introduce the people in the industry, but they believe the industry like AAA industry. We believe the global game jam to introduce the people to the industry, but to an industry where they don't have to go to Nintendo or work with Electronic Arts. We believe they have to go to the industry as independent creators, telling their own tales, giving their own conception of the world in a digital way, as well as they have done with their tales, their paintings, with their music, with their festivals, and all that part. So that's the two visions of an industry, and an industry have to have those contradictory visions at the same time, because we are working and we are retroalimenting one another. We are giving feedback, and we are working together to bring new experiences, because we have some part of innovation that, well, could be very difficult to monetize in a big site, because, well, it is very regional. It is impossible, for example, to expect that we could have a big hit music, big hit song in a native language from Mexico, but we have great examples of big hits with Shakira, for example, right now. She rocked it, or with Bad Bunny, you know, because that's another way. But Shakira and Bad Bunny, they are what they are because they have their own roots in this independent music. So the same goes for the game dev. A lot of times when we talk about the developing industries in the world, in the game dev world, we believe they need more industry. They need more better PCs. They need a better process, and they need we need that. Well, in Mexico now we have the same as in America, but it's not enough. That we need that to integrate that part of our cultural roots in order to make it work for the big industry in our countries. Because if we don't have these roots, then what we can do, another version of what we have seen from American game developers, from the Japanese game developers, well, we have seen it, and we have those games. We have to bring our own interactive language. We have to bring our own ideas to the industry. So I expect this was a good answer, and it was not something very weird, because yeah, it's difficult to work with people who believes in the world in different terms. I thought I don't know if I was talking with Natasha or with who. Here in Mexico, at this time of the year, we have in the south of Mexico a tropical weather, excellent tropical weather. In the middle of Mexico, we have crazy weather. Right now it's 9 a.m. and the sun is not coming out yet. And in the north of Mexico, we have snowfalls right now. So they believe the world is very different.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's actually like I haven't even thought of that like, since Mexico is a huge country compared to our teeny tiny spot on the map that's up here. Because yeah, I mean, like, I think this is like one of the biggest differences in Finland compared to what you have just told me, is because we are geographically, it's a large country, but most of it is woods. There is 5 million of us living in this massive country. A lot of people are, and even though we have these few like big cities that are like, wow, 500,000 people. that is our capital, and it's actually like here. I feel like this, in Finland we're very like heavily the digitalization, like everyone everywhere is technology, and you meet it everywhere. I think that's one of the things that is making why Finland is currently like we're like very deep in the game development industry. We are like the game industry country here with Sweden, of course, and and other European countries, we're like doing a lot of things. But here in Finland, we have like all the cities have their own like game communities, and the IGDA Finland is actually a very active community that is binding this. So we have like a lot of like the whole Finland doing things together, and like now we even like for global game jam we have the Finnish game jam like happening. Basically, it's the same thing, but it's like all these different kind of hub leads and organizers like making this like a Finnish version of the global game jam, but it's the same thing sort of kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like I sort of I under like this that you have explained to me. It sounds like the whole Europe put to one single country almost, because we do have the same thing like with Southern Europe. We do speak a different language. We see the world. It's like the same distance, but it's a different country basically.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's I mean, to me it seems like there should be more cooperation like between the European and the Mexicans. Like there is a lot in common in a sense, even though we're like very different, but there is like these sort of like gaps, and there is like a lot of things that we could and should do together, even though the time difference is like, I mean, it's 5 p.m. here and the sun is setting. So it's like but in a sense we do have like the same kind of desire to evolve the game industry and make it more international and more like together. Oh, Petter! Hello,
Hi.
Petter.
Well,
He's not saying anything.
no.
We have been talking for an hour now.
No, it's because it's very interesting. For example, as you said, we should to have a more communication in general between Latam, not just Mexico, Latam and Europe, but also we have a lot of differences in how we understand the things. I was thinking about this. We're working with the people from other countries of Latam, and when working with people from Europe, from Europe, not Americans. Americans have another thing. But for example, a lot of times I have listened from the Europeans and Americans say Western, and they believe Western like is like the left side of the map, and it's like not, because it's not the same the European way of thinking than the American way of thinking, and in the American way of thinking, the Canadians have another way of thinking versus the Americans, and also in the USA, it's very difficult one coast to the other. But also in Latam, we are not a Western culture because we don't believe the things like the Western culture. I was thinking, for example, the access to technology, it's the same. We have good internet, and it falls when something happens in every part of the world. So what's the difference? Well, we have access to the internet. Well, in Mexico, you will find that the people will believe that it is important to be protected of elves or witches, because they are true. They are not just tales. They are part of their everyday living. And if you go to the Americans, it's like, no, that's tales. That's a magic way of look at things. But for the Mexicans, it's very, very important, those kind of things. And it's very different from the zodiac. Because you could say, well, it's maybe like the people who live inside. No. So the thing is that, for example, we believe here that there are witch people that could make money from nothing, and you have that you could see that, or we could think that they are little differences, but they are not. they are deep differences, and we have to prepare our institutions to work together, because we have to work with that without barriers, without problems. I don't know how to say that in the way that there is not a barrier between one or another. Um, there is like ways to talk about the things. I was thinking, for example, about, as I told you, we share a lot in common with the Japanese culture. So the networking meetings in USA were like, yeah, what's your project? Let's see the viability of the business, your experience. In Mexico, in Japan is, okay, I don't care about the viability of the business. We can find the way to make it work. But tell me about your hopes, tell me about your hobbies, tell me about what do you think about the world. That's a very different approach to the business, for example. No? I've been in some European Union and Mexico events, trying to make the cultural industries to work together, and it was very hard. For example, I love the meet to match service. It's awesome. It doesn't work here. It doesn't work like that. It's very difficult for us to use a service like that, because it's not the way we socialize. So the service is excellent. Working, if you know how to use it, it is excellent. I value it a lot. I want to use it here in the Mexican events. The problem is the Mexicans doesn't use it. So for them it's like no, why? How do you make a schedule of a meeting in a web page? No. You have to go and see look the people at their eyes, and then you can schedule a meeting. And it's like, okay, your way is very difficult, but let's try to make it work. That's something very difficult here in Mexico. I think that's the problem. We have to make the way to make things work, because it's very difficult for not just for Mexico. I'm pretty sure that the same happens in the other countries of Latam. I'm pretty sure the same happens with Asia and Africa, that we have our way, and our way is not necessarily the same as they are expecting from us. So it's going to be hard, because, as I told you, to me it's very impressive to look at how well we make business with Japanese people. And the Japanese are very hard to make business. They are they have very high standards. But I don't know why they love to make a lot of events here, and it is the same as difficult to bring some guests for our events from Europe or Canada than bring a guest from Japan. And it's something that is very weird to me, because the Japanese, it's far. It's very far. It should be hard, but not. For them, it's very warm. The Mexican culture.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, I think I kind of like this is something that should be explored in more detail, on like how actually we could bring like these different kind of cultures, like different kind of ways of meeting other developers and different kind of ways to make the communication work. I think the meet to match system in Europe and in America it's very rapid. You need to kind of like be very like kind of convincing and strong, and you pitch your thing, and you're like it's so immediate and very fast. It's like tuck, 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 okay, next, tuck, 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 next.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a way to make it more human, to more kind of like this more soft type of conversational meeting. I think there should be like there could be discoveries on this one. Yeah. We have actually like Petter here on the channel, who is one of our jammers. They made a game with Natasha.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to show the game that you did? We have been just talking here for over an hour. I'm not sure if you're muted, but we cannot hear you.
No, and it doesn't seem to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
Hear me?
yes,
Okay, yes, I don't know. It's always broken. Great. Hi.
It used to happen.
I forgot about this completely. And I came here to listen to you talk. Hi, I feel very exposed.
it's fine. We've been talking for what, hour and 50 minutes now, just in general.
Yeah, you're just chatting as Twitch says.
That's nice. Yeah, no, we made a game, sure. I mean, I can show it, I guess, if you're interested in that kind of thing. But I don't know. It didn't sound like you were talking about the game jam. You were talking about something else very interesting.
I think, yeah, we talked about the game jam as well, and then the conversation took its own course. So, but please do show the game.
Okay, let's see if I can find it here somewhere. No, I had a build. Oh, PC build. PC build showcase. Wait, I'm just gonna see if this restarts, and then maybe I can try to share the screen. We thought the theme Roots was quite great, and we decided to make a game about roots. Actually, it's a narrative game. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna try to share this screen. Let's see if it works. Present your window. Select. Okay. Maybe this. Okay. Can you see this? I'm trying to share this.
Yes, we can see it.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, so the first thing we thought of when it came to the word roots was Yggdrasil, of course, and as we all know, in the roots of Yggdrasil is an entire world, or various worlds, and we wanted to tell this story about someone who traveled into the sort of the underworld, Niflheim, and everything else that exists there on a little quest. And actually, I mean, we are, of course, roots, the roots of our northern place here is strongly represented in that. You know, why we picked the sort of Norse theme. It's got about 14,000 words, which I'm not really sure how we managed. I had another writer, there were two of us, and we wrote like crazy the entire weekend. A lot of the code is stuff that I've had from before. It's like narrative stuff that I've done. So that was a little bit of a shortcut. It was a great deal of fun. And yeah, a lot of research went into like, because it's what's it called, mythologically accurate, pretty far. You play, and this is also an interesting thing, you play as a brother of Loki called Byleisten, who has he has no historical record. There's absolutely no information whatsoever about this brother of Loki. And the only way we know that he exists is because sometimes Loki, who you all know, of course, the god, trickster god, is referred to as Loki, brother of Byleisten. So we took this character who has no history whatsoever, and we created this history for him in this game. There's a couple of fun little mechanics that we managed to put in here. There's that's supposed to go like that. There's some skill checks. You have these various abilities, Hammer, Hugur, Fylgja, and Haminja, which are the 4 parts of the Norse idea of the soul was split into these 4 parts. You have your body, you have your mind, you have this like the notion that you have a follower, which is this character here, and then you have something called Haminja, which is like your luck, your personal luck, and decided to use these 4 as kind of like a stat checks basically. Otherwise, it's this kind of thing, lots and lots of text. They talk with each other. I'm just gonna skip through this because no one has time to read all this. Let's see if we manage to get up. There we go. See, sometimes you can make choices and you something increases. In this case, you make this choice and you got some more. Yeah. Let's see if you find the thing. Yeah. And here randomly, because you have high luck, you manage to find this item, Hell's Lucet, which you will use later on. So this is this kind of game that we made, and this is a skill check here because you needed this much hammer to climb this thing. You failed. Fell down.
Okay.
Hurt yourself. And I broke it. There we go. That's not supposed to happen. How did I do that? Okay, well. Anyway, I'm gonna stop there because that was enough. That's what we made, and quite proud of it. So, hello. I think it fit the theme nicely, and it of course broke like 2 times here when I showed it. But it is a gem. Yeah.
It is awesome.
It's so cool. We were actually, this is pretty interesting that it's you who came to show this game because because we were talking earlier about roots and how the jammers interpret it in different kind of ways, and we were talking about cultural roots and how that was visible in the games. So this is kind of like a very good example of this kind of Norse and this northern Scandinavian mythology, and I really love this, and I also like major respect for Petter. You're like great narrative designer. But how did if you think like the Mexican sort of mythology, how does this seem to you? Like what differences does like how do you
our for example, one difference is every culture has a tree of life. The Mexican tree of life is the corn. So the mythical representation is the winged snake, because when you look at the corn, it's like a snake, and their leaves are like feathers. So that's how they understand. So it's very interesting because, as I told you, here in the Mexican roots, thinking about like the similar Scandinavian roots, we have this interpretation, like it's like they named the abstract nature of the things. So look at the Scandinavian culture is like looking at culture that has preserved their aesthetics, that have preserved their tales. When you look at the Mexican culture, the Hispanic cultures, we look at cultures that are in a constant reshape of themselves. The same tree of life here in Mexico has been one snake once a time, other times they are corns, other times they talk about ants, and they are the ants the ones who bring the the core to life, and it's a like a, a common reconstruction of the tale and an understanding of our roots. Also, I believe that it's something that happens when you have an active volcano near your main cities, because if we look at the last 2,000 years, they have a lot of eruptions and they change their way to understand it. In fact, just a couple of years before the Spanish arrives to Mexico City, they have an earthquake, so they reshape their city. That was a new city, not that was the original city. So that's very interesting, because to me it's like the opposite kind of understanding of the roots. The roots that are firm and they have the same shape, and the roots that are constantly changing. They're more like roots, like fungus roots, like the micenus that we were like everywhere and taking and reconstructing. And that vision of the Scandinavian culture is like look at the roots of a tree, that are more static, that are more stable, and that has this different part. To me, it's very interesting, because as I told you, here in Mexico, we reshape our way of thinking constantly with the ones who we are sharing. So for us, it's very interesting to find this kind of God like Loki, like it's very tricky. And it's an interesting choice of God. Here in the Mexican folklore, we have something similar. It's sorry for the names; they are very difficult for I know. Tezcatlipoca. This guy is like kind of Loki. In fact, he's one of the brothers of Quetzalcoatl, that is the famous god, that is like the main god. And he was like very tricky, and he has very similar stories. I remember the story of Loki trying to make Thor drink the ocean in a bottle. Tezcatlipoca makes something similar. They try to make their brothers to drink alcohol, because alcohol was provided here in the pre-Hispanic cultures for the people, or for some people. For the emperors were provided because of their they didn't want to have an alcoholic king, so the kings couldn't drink alcohol, but Tezcatlipoca make them drink alcohol, and it's very similar. The stories are very similar. The representations are very similar. Both are like this tricky, shadowy people. So I think it's very interesting, because we share a lot of things in common, and I think, for example, this kind of games works works in some context out of their own origin. For example, I'm pretty sure that if we translate it, we could use it to make the kids read here in Mexico, because that's a story that it's interesting, it's universal interesting. Well, maybe not universal. Maybe for some other cultures, the tricky gods are something like very weird, but for us, it's like a part of our folklore and of our everyday culture. Like, for example, as I told you, we believe that the elves here in Mexico are something that happens in the big city. When you lose something, it's because an elf took it, and you have to be constantly in this imaginary part of the life. We never lose the magic, and I think that's another thing in common. because we have a very playful cultures because we never lose that capacity of the of the magic in our everyday life, and some other parts or some more modern cities has lost that part. They are just like cities and they lose that part of the magic and playful way of life.
I think it's like, well, I have like this personal philosophy that you need to grow up but never become an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, like sort of kind of like, and I think that's one of the things like that we in game industry and game development, we're kind of lucky because we have actually the permission to be big kids, to create these magical stories and worlds and everything, and also like I love the whole research that Petter and Natasha have gone through, like with the whole like to make it truthful, but it's still like this amazing story. So I consider this is like a very lucky thing that we get to do. Like,
Yeah, I believe it too. That's something very important of the game developing and the game designer positions. Because, well, maybe you could be a coder and that's not so necessary. But I believe in general, the creativity and the creative industries need that playful spirit. If we lose it, then we don't have anything to say because uh, part of being not an adult, the adults are not boring. That's another. I think that's another misbelief of the of some people. No, being an adult is not boring. The problem is that if you fall into monotony, if you lose that spark of imagination, when you lose it and everything has an explanation and everything is like very straight, it's like yeah, it is good for the order, but it is not good for the soul. The soul needs those creative spaces. Uh, Making games give us that space, it gives us that chance, and also it gives us the chance to share it with other people for them not to lose that part of them. I believe another thing that is interesting is, and that's something that I haven't seen so much in the jams because of the difficulty of making this kind of experience, but creating games that allows the players to find that creative spirit. It's something very important. That it's paideia, as we sing as told them. This space of creativity is something that we need to promote more in our industry to our players because it's something that they need really urgent because of this part of the history that we are living now. We are living in a world with no magic, with no something that could be like new for us. We know already our world, and the introspective knowing of one is something interesting, but it's also creepy. So we need something that more ludic, and we need to give those space that the adventure we don't have now because we already know everything around us.
yeah, that is very true. That is true. I think we have been like
Yeah.
going on hour and a half right now. Yeah, we actually we'll be streaming this whole thing, so like anyone watching or not watching, they can
Yeah.
watch it later as well. Petter, now since you're here, do you want to say something? Like, do you have something to say?
Something to say. I missed the most of this thing, so I don't have anything to say about that. I hope you had a really nice event in Mexico, and that Global Game Jam was a big success there as well as it was here. And thanks again to TP on behalf of everyone who didn't clearly make it here for organizing game jam here in Turku, and it was really great fun and huge success as every year, but especially this year.
Thank you. But it was my pleasure, and also thank you for both of you to join me, and also like this. I think this was a very good talk. I think we had a very good talk here. Even though just let the game to show his game, I think we had a good time, a good talk.
Yeah. No, and it was something that we make over the our well here in Mexico we say sobre la marcha. I don't know how to translate it, not because of the words, because of the idea. What you do is like we make it very swift. So it was awesome. Also, these years, I don't know if you feel it same there, but here in Mexico, as I told you, it was very difficult years because it changes a lot, and it's like, oh my God, we have now everything in a digital format, and this year in particular that we have some part this hybrid format is like new for us, experimenting, and also tired as hell because we are doing what we used to do, but the double. We have some physical sites, we have also some virtual sites. It's been a very satisfactory year, but also a very tired year. So we have to find the way to make it not so tired, but maintain the satisfaction of the jammers. And as I told you, I have seen a lot of good projects. I have seen a lot of community here, and I hope it could something that we could share in the future. So thanks for the invitation. Thanks for the chat. It was an amazing talk. I want to repeat it. Yeah, it was amazing. So that's all from my part.
Thank you very much, and I mean, like, I had a lot of fun, and I really hope to talk with you again, and kind of like maybe share more often these ideas and philosophies and different kind of things. And I really do want to, make the world a bit smaller in this sense that we could like maybe have more joint operations and more conversations and kind of like meet each other in between this.
Sure.
This yes. Okay, but hey, thank you so much, and it was lovely, and I mean, like, seriously amazing to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's do this again, and have a lovely day. Here is evening, but you have a lovely day.
We are beginning our day. If you see, now it's brighter because the sun has finally rise.
Here it's dark. Now it's dark.
Yeah.
The sun is gone. Okay, but hey, talk to you again, and thank you a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
See you soon.
Okay. See you soon. Bye.